This episode is brought to you by Netflix. This Monday night, witness the end of an era. John Cena takes center stage for his final appearance ever on Monday Night Raw. One last match, one unforgettable farewell. Come celebrate the legacy of a true WWE legend. Monday Night Raw, November 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, only on Netflix. Be there for the moment everyone will be talking about.
Hey friends, this is Audie Cornish, host of CNN This Morning and The Assignment, and guess what? Every story you care about, every angle you want unpacked is now streaming on CNN. That means you can catch my show or other CNN programming whenever you want on your favorite device. And a subscription also gets you access to exclusive video series and unlimited articles. So subscribe to CNN at cnn.com/subscription.
Welcome to another Britflix.com podcast. My name is Stuart Wright, and today's returning guest is Amanda Graham. Welcome to the show.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to have a chat with you, Stuart. Thanks for having me on.
Indeed. And thank you for your patience. I won't go into the details, but Amanda is a saint, and it reflects on what we're going to talk about, I do believe. Amanda has written a self-help book called Good Stuff to Read When You're About to Lose Your Shit. And as I was briefing Amanda, I've been having 3 days of losing my shit, and it's been timely to be able to dip into this book. So, Amanda, before we get into some of the details of pulling this together, do you want to give people a brief synopsis as to what it is that the title doesn't give an insight to?
Yeah, sure. Well, in a nutshell, basically, I had the worst decade of my life, like really hideous stuff. You know, one thing after another was happening and everybody was dying and I kept losing work and it was just awful. And I needed a self-help book. Now, for people who can see or can't see, I've got tons of books behind me and half of them are self-help books. And one of the things that I noticed about self-help books, especially when you're in a time of crisis, is that they expect you to have the emotional ability to sit there and read a 50-page chapter and complete a workbook. And I was like, that is not how crisis works. That is not how crisis works. And so I decided to write something that if you only had enough energy for one sentence, just one sentence, you get one sentence. Or if you need a story, you get a story. If you need an activity, you get an activity. And it was just important to really meet people where they were. So I break it down into chapters, all the things that drove me crazy, assholes, money, work, broken hearts, crisis, grief, the whole thing. And then, so that's the kind of main chapters. And then there's an overarching story, which is through this whole time, I had to learn how to connect the dots and make sense of all this time that didn't make any sense. And so it was just basically about how those dots of these terrible times, how they connected and how that led me to a much better place. So it kind of works in two levels.
Indeed. Now, you are a screenwriter by trade.
Yes.
And when we spoke last time, we talked about networking.
Yes.
Now, writing a self-help book is very different than writing a screenplay.
Yeah,
I do, and certainly the self-help book you've written is very different than writing a screenplay. Although there's a lot of white space on the page, so I mean, in that sense, there's some similarities. So, over the 3 years that it took you to pull this book together, what are some of the creative differences and challenges you found writing a book like this compared to the thing that you've honed your craft in?
That's a really good question. Actually, it wasn't that different. And I did struggle with trying to figure out the overarching story, but I knew right away about the different chapters. And because my background is in research, I had done documentary research for years and so was able to find loads of things. And I've been what I call a knowledge curator for a really long time. I love imparting knowledge and sharing stuff. So for me, it was really like, okay, I'd make a joke. I'd be doing stand-up as well. So doing one-liner jokes and all that, I've already done all that. So it was actually pretty easy to do. It took a long time and it took a crap ton of research. But yeah, no, it actually came, it was really hard work, but it actually came pretty easily to me because I just wrote the book that I wish had been there for me.
Okay. So I mean, give it, because you say in your introduction, 30 or 40 self-help books, and you're like, hold on a minute, these people haven't even got a problem. They're just writing.
Oh my God.
So tell us, like, what was that nut to crack? What did that, was that a pattern you saw across all of them as a nut to crack for your own self-help?
Yeah, I mean, it was, granted, there are a few where people were going through some shit, like they were, they had to deal with alcoholism or something else. But really, it was a lot of, my husband and I, we, in our second home in Venice, we struggled with communication problems. And I'm sitting there like, I can't even afford heat. I can't afford heat in the wintertime. And I'm working, trying to find 6 jobs as a single mom, trying to pay the bill. Are you kidding me? And so I found that really frustrating. And what was hilarious was that it wasn't just one area of my life that was in crisis. It was like every single area, nothing was working. And so I was like, yeah, I think I'm pretty qualified. And if anybody reads my book, they'll understand I am really coming from a place of, I had absolutely nothing and really had to rebuild my life, not even from ground zero. I would say from like 3 or 4 levels underneath ground zero. And so, and I hope that helps people, because I think it helps to know that somebody has been in the same place as you. Really.
Yeah. No, I think if any, from the bits I've read, I can definitely say that there is you've conveyed the mania of some of the situations very well. You can feel your energy. You're not sort of, like you say in other self-help books I've read, there's this sort of innate calmness, which when you're in the middle of whatever you're going through, is just annoying.
Yeah. It's annoying. It's terrifying. I mean, obviously, it depends on what the situation is, right?
Of course.
But and and especially when you're going through periods where it just doesn't let up, or you've tried everything and you just can't figure out a way to kind of negotiate your way out of the situation. So yeah, brutal, absolutely brutal.
Who do you think this book is for?
People who appreciate the truth, which is actually a very small subsection of the population. Mm-hmm. And people who like irreverent stuff, who don't want to sugarcoat anything, and also people who don't mind taking advice or information from someone who is chaotic. Like I live kind of a chaotic life. I am not someone who colors in the lines or lives in an organized way. I am definitely a fly by the seat of the pants kind of gal. So if you are all about that, then that's who the book's for. But really, underdogs and people who are underestimated, and who maybe don't have a lot of resources.
Got you. So you kind of, in terms of advice and what we can do ourselves, the book sort of throws up what you call story time. Hold up now, something to think about. The science of it. An activity, a top tip, and connect the dots. So obviously we're not going to discuss them all, but could you perhaps give us maybe a favorite story that you were able to find that you found sort of useful in terms of maybe something you were trying to explain in it? There's so many good stories, but there's one that I only heard it. And it was a really brilliant story about a gentleman, and I can't remember his name. I know that it's a Muslim name, but he was an immigrant, and he was hired by a hotel that was in one of these towns that's been kind of crumbling, a seaside town. It's been crumbling for a long time. And they had, the hotel was months away from closing down. So they brought this guy in to try and fix everything before they went into bankruptcy. And what was really interesting was his approach. So like I said, everything was wrong with the hotel, right? Old, gross
80s dark wood furnishings and ratty everything. And so what most of us would do, I don't know if you're the same way, Stuart, but most of us would go in there and go, okay, I'm going to try and find new curtains as cheaply as possible and some carpets, and we'll try and figure out, and we'll just like Frankenstein a solution together. What he decided to do was to pick one thing to perfect. So he decided to perfect tea. So he decided this hotel would be the one place in the whole region where you could go for the perfect cup of tea.
Wow.
Because tea, yeah, right? Because tea is something, even if you get expensive stuff, it's something that doesn't cost much. So they got good used china. He sourced organic, really high, classy tea. And word spread about how this place was the place to get a perfect pot of tea. And then that, of course, spread to a high tea and whatever else. And because this was known as the one place to get the tea in the whole region, money started coming in, and then they used the money to fix other things in the hotel. And within a couple of years, he had completely turned the hotel around, and they had a chain. They made a chain. And I thought that was such a good metaphor for those of us who've got lots of crap going on in our lives. And you know what it's like, where you almost are breathless because you don't even know where to begin. You're like, I'm so screwed in so many areas of my life. And so what we tend to do is just try and patch everything up. And we put plasters on everything and just try and wing it until some miracle comes our way. Instead of just going, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to either fix the relationship side of things, I'm going to fix the housing side of things or my job side of things. And I'm just going to focus everything and then let everything else fall into place. And I just thought that was such a brilliant way of looking at things. So that's my favorite story in the book.
So, and then what about your favorite science tidbit you were able to sort of use to prove a point?
I think the science ones, I love so many of them, but a lot of the science ones are focused on who we are as people and why we behave the way we do, like psychologically. And so one of the things that I always talk to people about and that really helped me was learning why people do what they do. Because usually when we get into confusing circumstances or we don't know whether we made a mistake or whatever else, we don't know that people act the way they do. So herd mentality, that is a perfect example of what I mean. So herd mentality is something that comes from our evolutionary days. We all wanted to be the same because our acceptance when we were like Neanderthals and the early humans was based on how much we acted like the people around us. And so one of our biggest problems in this day and age is, I'm sure you know this, you are a creative. People don't take risks. People don't tell you what they really think. People make decisions that go against themselves because that's what everybody else is doing. Right. And so they go along with the crowd. This is exactly what I mean. So that's kind of a scientific thing that we really need to be aware of so that we can anticipate the way we act and the way other people act in certain situations.
And then finally, in terms of just picking out bits of the book that stand out for you or that were the sort of favourite bits, is what dots were you able to connect then that obviously wouldn't have been apparent before you're writing the book?
Okay. So there's so many, because the whole dots thing, I didn't even believe in. I was in the dark night of the soul and I prayed. I didn't even believe in anything. And I prayed for some kind of wisdom or solution of what can I do just to make any part of my life better. And then basically overheard a clip of Steve Jobs talking about how it's only when you get to the other side and you can look back and connect the dots. And I thought that was bullshit. I was like, what dots? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. And I was even more annoyed when I discovered a couple of years later that he was right. And I was like, oh my God, the dots are connecting. This is insane. So a perfect example of this is when do I want to do the Travis one or the Tristram one? I'll do Travis this time, right? Okay. So I had and the book talks about how I have always struggled with finding employment. And that's probably because I'm an older writer. 53 is geriatric in the TV and film industry, and being outwardly autistic as well. So the disability thing is a nightmare. It's always been difficult for me to get jobs. And so years ago, I had applied for a job as an assistant producer, and we had to make a little short film that represented who we were. Like a 90-second thing. And I decided to do a noir, black and white, kind of in this building, which is very old, and it was very cool. And I did it with my friend. I didn't get the job. Okay, so surprise, surprise, didn't get the job. Now, I put that on ice for 10 years. And then last November, I decided, I don't know why, Stuart, but I put it on LinkedIn. I don't know why I did this. Now, I don't know how it got on Travis's timeline, but it got on the timeline of Travis Blaze, who is a Disney animating legend. He has animated like 20 Disney films, from Beauty and the Beast to Lion King to, just everything, right? All the way up to Brother Bear, I think, but he did everything. So anyways, he was like, who are you? Oh my God, right? But who are you? This film is amazing. So anyways, we talked and got on like a house on fire. And now he is one of my best friends. And what's crazy is, so those were a couple dots connecting. But what's also crazy is I had another person of mine had said, you need to do a TED Talk. So I was trying to think, this was last summer. I was like, before I met Travis, I was like, what could I do a TED Talk on? And I can't remember what happened, but a story that I wrote when I was 12 years old came into my mind. Now, I used to write stories at school because it was the only time I wasn't bullied. So another dot, right? Like another thing that didn't make any sense. And I forgot about the story. And then I was like, oh, holy cow, this would make an amazing story, a kid's book. But I need somebody to illustrate it, but I need somebody good to illustrate it. So I was like, okay, put it out into the universe. Yes, I am a hippie. I put it out in the universe. It's like, I need a really good illustrator. So anyways, fast forward, Travis and I met. A month or two later, we're chatting about our New Year's resolutions and what we're hoping for the new year. And he's like, you know what? I've always wanted to illustrate a children's book. And I was like, get the hell out of here. And he was like, no, I'm serious. And so anyways, so he's illustrating the book, but then one more dot. So this is another one where years ago, my kid kept getting, and all the kids in his school kept getting nits. It was driving me crazy. It happened like 3 times in 2 years. And so I decided to write a cartoon about nits and lice because they survive everything, even though everything's trying to kill them. So I wrote this script called Super Nits, and I wrote it for the Adult Swim audience. And I was like, I'm just going to write it for the Adult Swim audience, right? So I tried to get meetings with them. We, what it's like. Sometimes you just can't get a meeting with who you want to meet with. Yeah. And so I was like, I know this is good. So last autumn, I went to the Manchester Animation Festival completely randomly. And the dude who was the head of Adult Swim UK was there, and he was looking for something dark, distinctly British, but with a children's type of perspective. I was like, dude, super. I accosted him. I walked him to the train station, and I was like, you need to read the script, right? Anyways, so I promise I'm getting somewhere. So I feel like we're getting somewhere. He said, send me the script in December. I was like, great. So I chased it up in like the end of January, and they're like, dude, we got like 1,000 scripts. If you hear from us, you hear from us. Okay. So a couple months ago, I hear he left, and I was like, for crying out loud, right? So anyways, then I hear from them. I heard from them a month ago going, we love this script. Can we send this to the bosses? We like this for us. Can we send this to the bosses in US? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, do you have anybody attached? And I was like, yeah, Travis Blaze. And they were like, no way. No way. And I was like, yeah. So they're like, do you have any supporting materials? They're like, now look, don't worry. We love the script enough. You don't need to do any supporting materials at all. But if you want to, or if you've want to whip something up, you're welcome to send it. So obviously Travis and I whipped something up within the matter of days. And it was just so weird to see all from not getting a job in like 11 years ago, all from that, right? All of those different dots connecting. So that's what I mean. But unless you don't know to look for them, you might not ever spot them.
No. I think you've kind of described the problem and solution to the creative industry in a nutshell. if you're looking from the outside in and you're excited about what you do, it's like, well, what do I do with that thing I'm excited about? But
that's it.
Obviously, you've written this book, and it's for other people to take from it, hopefully, to help them with their losing the shit. But obviously, you went through 3 years of writing this, and when you started the book, you would have had a perception of what losing your shit meant. And obviously, having gone through the research, the writing, the thinking, the joining of the dots, and so on and so forth, how much has your perception of losing your shit changed from before you wrote the book to now having written the book?
That is one of the best questions that anyone has ever asked me about this book.
Okay.
And it's, when I started the book, things were still pretty bad. I had a few breakthroughs, had my, partnership with Tristram all sorted and everything, but I just still wasn't getting anywhere. Anyway, what I thought losing my shit was, in no way was like it was when I published it. Like in the last, I can't remember if I mentioned this in the book, but in the last 2 years, 18 months, the sale of my flat fell through 8 times. My Nana died. My friend Martin died. My best friend in the whole world, my lifelong ride or die, died. Yeah. I had to work for 2 winters through the cold. I had I'm not going to say who because for their privacy, but somebody very close to me in my family had a second heart attack. Someone else very close to me in my family had 2 strokes. One that I had to talk through getting her to the hospital on the other side of the ocean. These are only the things I can remember in 18 months. So, especially with Missy dying, my best friend, that was probably 4 weeks before the publication date, the original publication date. And I couldn't, obviously I couldn't, I still have not, I in no way have accepted it at all. And and so I had to push the publication back a month. And I really felt like I needed to write about grief because that was something that I didn't have in there. And so I did write a chapter on grief, but it's so wild because I really thought I had a very reasonable grasp on what losing or what being this close to losing your shit was. But something about testing the product before the launch, that became very, very apparent. And so now, I have come through 100% convinced of the fact that the book and the content works. And what's really funny is I had loads of people when my agent packaged it up, I got a book agent right away and she sent it and they were like, what's her, what is she an expert in? She's not a psychiatrist. She's not. And I was like, I am an expert in not losing my shit despite extraordinary circumstances. Yeah. How much time do you have for me to tell you about them? So that's the short answer, Stuart.
Well, it all sounds insurmountable, but obviously you've got through it. Unbelievable. How can people get hold of the book?
So it's sold on my website, which is www.itsamandagraham.com, as in ITSAMANDAGRAHAM.com. And there's a link right at the top on the homepage, but you can just go through, the burger menu and it's there too.
I will put a link in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you for introducing us to your book. We are now going to move on to 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. I suspect losing your shit might impact some of these stories. I don't know. We are going to talk about 3 films that you've given me in advance. Every time 5 minutes are up, you are going to hear this sound. Can you hear that at your end?
Yes. Like, that's my son's alarm clock.
Is it really?
Yes, it is.
He has DEFCON 1 to wake up in the morning.
Yes.
He's
a teenager. Come on.
From 1970s sci-fi.
Yeah.
Right then. For your first choice, clock is ticking. We have Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah.
What are the fond memories, and why does this film have such an impact on you?
Because the year before Pee-wee's Big Adventure came out, I was in a cult. Everybody who knows me well knows I was in a apocalyptic fundamentalist cult, and it spectacularly blew up the year before. And one of the biggest problems with that was we didn't have any joy in it. Funnily enough, it was pretty awful, and we weren't allowed any joy, any hilarious worldly things. So the only time I got to see really cool movies was sneaking them. Or if my dad, who was not in the cult, who was split up from my mom, would take us to it. And I remember when I watched Pee-wee's Big Adventure, it impacted me so much because it was so joyful. It was joyful, and it was silly, and it was childlike. And I had never seen that combination outside of cartoons, outside of Saturday morning cartoons. And it was the first time I felt real, when you're giddy, like when you catch yourself laughing and you're like that. It was like that. And it seemed like and it was so camp, and it was such a double fingers up to everything that, we had just been dragged through.
Yeah.
And it kind of taught me, it's in the same school of like John Waters and just that really silly camp hilarity that really has influenced who I am and how I write. I believe in keeping a childlike innocence and fun to everything, even to the dark stuff. Because Pee-wee's Big Adventure is actually quite dark in a lot of ways. No surprise, really. It's Tim Burton's first film. So, so I think it's just magnificent. And also, it's the giving a chance to someone who no one heard of. Who was different and weird. And I am a weirdo. I love my weirdos. I feel very protective of weirdos. And you don't see many films that take a chance on someone who is so different in so many ways to what we usually see out there.
I mean, I hadn't really thought about it. It's the 40th anniversary this year of Pee-wee's Big. And I think culturally, it's much more significant in the US than the UK. Because even if you weren't in a cult, the film is still pretty subversive, isn't it? In terms of the American dream, or whatever America perceives itself to be.
Yeah, and it's a huge statement on conformity and nonconformity, and he just completely lived his life. It's, as a neurodivergent person, it's not just all the pretty, bright colors and whimsical things that I love. It's that he lives his life exactly the way he wants to live it, unapologetically. And it doesn't occur to him to not live that way. And it doesn't occur to him to explain himself. It's magnificent.
And I think, but also as well, from a kind of filmmaking point of view, what it does really well is it's absurd, but the world building to help you understand it's absurd isn't at the cost of the drama. The drama, everything's played straight against the absurdist. I mean, there's ridiculous things happen, but I think it's safe to say that you're allowed. I mean, and I'm guessing the way you describe it, you watching it as an outlet for not having fun. That world building must have been just purely magical, because it didn't pretend there was a real world outside. It was like saying, this is a world that lives just a sliver away from where you are.
Yeah, he just literally did whatever he wanted. It didn't matter. He could be as silly as he wanted, and there was no silliness. I just wasn't used to the silliness, and there was so much in my heart that was like that when I was a child, before the dark days, before we were involved in all that stuff. And it was almost like reawakening the magic. That's what it is, magic.
And how do your 21st century eyes see the film?
Same way.
Really?
I still get just as excited when I watch it. I love it.
I think it's the beautiful thing about, I think it's because, I think with art, there's a thing that art's, because the expression that, it's all very well to think of, oh, there goes our first time.
Okay.
It's all very well for us to think about the past, but once we're in the future, we can't relive it. Whereas a film is a statement that remains the same. Obviously, we change, but a film can allow us just to be jettisoned to an innocent time, or a bad time, or a good time.
I know, isn't that such a gift to be able to relive that, or to enjoy a previous emotional state, even if you're not the same person anymore?
No. I get it when I watch Smoking the Bandit.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic.
Right then, Amanda, we're moving swiftly along to your second choice, which is another Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, funnily enough, that's a coincidence, actually.
We're jumping 5 years in the future, so this is the 35th anniversary of this movie.
Yes,
it stars a very young and a movie star on the brink in Johnny Depp. I think this is probably where he straddles both the mainstream and a sort of cult following all at the same time. He manages to do that brilliant job of being cool and mega popular all at the same time. I am indeed talking about Edward Scissorhands. So tell me, Amanda, what are the fond memories attached to this, and how does it have an impact on you?
Well, it's not just the obvious reference to Robert Smith, which any reference to Robert Smith from The Cure, it's very exciting to me. But when Edward Scissorhands came out, I was at a university called Liberty University, which is an exceptionally conservative, religious, American university, and it was miserable. And we had a group called the Liberty Freaks. We were the freak posse, who were kind of weirdos, and you tend to find each other, don't you? And that was difficult. And outside of the university was a $1 theater. You could go see movies for $1, and you weren't supposed to do it. You could get in trouble for going to see movies. And when Edward Scissorhands came out, I saw it 14 times. I loved it. And I think what it was seeing freaks not normalized. That's not the right, validated in a way, and seeing a freak be the loved, and by somebody amazing like Winona, obviously Winona forever, we love her, but being the star of the story instead of the complication, instead of the person to be made fun of or whatever else. That was the first thing, and also it really shaped what I thought about love, and that is that you can be the weirdest, most isolated person and still experience love. And that was, for me, I had never even been in a relationship. I was already 18 or something like that. I was already at university. I had never experienced love before. And I don't know, there was something about that really settled my soul. And I know it's not a happy ending, and that he has to go live in the castle and be alone and whatever else. But I don't know, that snapshot of experiencing, giving and receiving, like that pure love where you can completely be yourself, especially when you're in an environment where everyone hates you. Is there anything better than that? I'm not quite sure. And so, I don't know why I just cry. I can't see without bawling my eyes out like a little bitch.
What that validation side of things that you say, I think Tim Burton's ambition apparently was about everything is seen from Edward's point of view. So therefore, that is why the neighborhood looks so fantastical. It's maybe not the real world, but that's the kind of the world he sees. And what makes that all the more interesting, it was never a film set. It's a real Florida community. And apart from a bit of paint, a bit of garish paint to jazz it up a bit, that's like, it sort of says there's a fine line between sort of fantastical and mundane.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a shame because, and we can say this, like those of us who are creatives or those of us who are weirdos can say this till we're blue in the mouth, but the normies don't get this. You miss out on so much stuff by being a normie. You miss out on magical things and looking at things in a different way and experiencing new things and whatever. Just for, all you experience when you're a normie is comparison and having to do what everybody else does. I can't think of anything more boring than that. That's horrific. That's a trap. And people still live that way in America,
And when you're rewatching a film multiple times,
yeah.
is it the overall experience that you're always going for, or is there little dopamine hits? Are you looking forward to certain elements? 'Cause obviously, that's the comfort of watching something we've already seen before. Yeah,
I love that question. I'd say both, because there will always be my favorite scenes, and then of course there's. I'm so sensory based that I feel things like so wholeheartedly with every cell of my body. That's probably an autistic thing, and so it's the physiological reaction that I have. Oh, it's such a gas. It really is. I love it.
Well, look, we've come to the end of our, the alarm did go off. It went off for about a second.
Yep.
We've come to the end of our 5 minutes, and we are going to move swiftly along to your final choice.
Yeah.
We're going back a few decades now. For Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk? I mean, again, another film that I think culturally speaking is well known because it's Gone with the Wind. But I think for America, obviously being adapted from a novel that's seen as equally important to modern literature in America too, it has a place, within the heart of America. So what makes you choose this? Why does this hold fond memories for you, and what impact does it have on you?
I'm not sure if fond memories is the right phrase, but it's super impactful. The first time I saw Gone with the Wind, I remember my mom. I'm really dating myself, like the wrinkles don't do that already. But I watched it on video, VCR, right? So VHS, and because it's such a long film, and I remember watching it. And of course, it's the Technicolor is amazing, and the staging is wonderful, and whatever. But what really got to me was how uncomfortable I felt with the way it was rewriting history. And I remember my mom watching it with me, and she said, God, I wish we could go back to those days. Everything was so much simpler then and whatever. And I remember being like, are you kidding me? And so I was like, this is not what slavery, this is not what it was like. And so I did my research into the book. And, the author was very, very like pro-Confederacy, pro this, and she wrote it as an homage to the Klan and the rise of the Klan.
Yeah.
And so what stood out to me, and really had a massive impact on me, was how damaging rewriting history can be, and how culturally it can be accepted so quickly, and how we as creatives need to acknowledge that responsibility. We need to acknowledge the responsibility that we have to, what are we really saying when we're writing whatever we're writing, or when we're trying to make whatever we're making, because people use the word gaslighting way too much in this day and time, but it really is cultural gaslighting. It is cultural gaslighting. And so I think it's really important. And this is me being Miss Right On Justice Warrior, whatever. I've always been that way. And again, that's the autism. It's built into how my brain works. I write about characters who are rebels who go against insane and stupid power systems. That's what I write about. And so it just irks the shit out of me when I watch stuff like this that basically lies about what life was really like. And we can look in America right now and see what the result of that is. We see the result of that, those cultural acceptances of false stories and false narratives.
Absolutely. And so you wouldn't have been would you debating this with your mother when she sort of sort of pining for something?
I was just like, Mom, like, well, first of all, she was Northern. So I was just like, what the hell are you talking about? This is what? It was very weird. She was also like politically active in the 60s with civil rights. I was just like, what the hell is going on? I honestly, sir, like sometimes, you know, when people in your family say stuff and you're like, where the hell did that come from? Anyways, I was just like, but it wasn't simple. Like that's not what happened. And that's, you know, but how do you debate about something that was real and a fact and tore your country apart, you know, because it was such a huge, big deal. Like, I don't know where that was coming from.
There's a weird irony that the film comes out in 1939, which obviously is the start of the Second World War. Obviously America joined a couple of years in, but this film sort of playing fast and loose with history and oppression and fascism and whatever, comes out in the year that fascists decide to try and take over the world.
Well, which is wild because obviously when the American soldiers came over here to the UK, they were segregated. And so black soldiers and white soldiers weren't allowed to fight together. They weren't allowed to be in the same companies or anything, which the British people thought was insane. Yeah. And, you know, but that's another perfect example. We never hear about what black soldiers did, but, you know, black soldiers liberated half the camps. We never hear about that. Like, so yeah, it is a continuum of stories that we hear that keep one narrative going and not another.
Is it taught in schools in America, the book, or is it just critically discussed?
No. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it wasn't in mine. It wasn't in my school, but, you know, a lot of the schools I went to were Christian schools where people were saying that it was in slaveholders, they treated their slaves well because they were property and they would want to keep their property happy.
Jesus.
I mean, it's just, yeah.
I've got to be kind to be cruel. Yeah.
I know it's just
insane.
I'm like, you can say that all you want, but that's not true. That's not true.
Indeed. Well, look. We've come to the end of 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. Thank you for sharing those thoughts and memories. And
thank you for asking.
My pleasure. And thank you for telling us all about good stuff to read when you're about to lose your shit. Remind us, how can we get hold of the book?
Just go to my website. It's www.itsamandagraham.com, and it's the links there.
Brilliant. I will put links in the show notes, and it just gives me to say, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Stuart. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Do remember to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, follow on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more movies that impacted your life. And if you want to, I'd love to know what your favourite movies are, what your fondest movie memories are. So please share your favourite movies that impacted your life on Twitter. Look for @LeightonRocks. And you can always leave me a review, 5-star preferably. And in your review, tell us which 3 films impacted your life. Best ones get read out on the podcast.
Hey there, Hugh from Podderation here, and if you like today's show, why not have a listen to the All Things Nintendo podcast? Hosted by Brian Shea, former director and Game Informer and lifelong games journalist, the show explores the ins and outs of gaming's oldest company and one of its biggest, featuring interviews, featuring reviews, featuring everything you want to know about the world of Nintendo. If you'd like to learn more, check out our website at podderation.com.